Hey guys, like I said in my last Battlefield 4 video, here is the video I promised to make. Top 10 ways to win a gunfight. Before beginning, first I'd like to say that two tips which I did not put in this top 10 because they were in my last top 10 are map awareness and watching your minimap at all times, which are extremely important when it comes to winning your gunfights, but I wanted to have space for more specific tips. But just keep in mind those are very important to the winning gunfights as well. Second, these 10 tips are kind of in order from 10 to 1, but overall these could really be in any order and they are all very important in their own way. Finally, I tried to put clips together that give you examples of what I'm talking about, so watch carefully. Enjoy. Number 10, pre-fire. Pre-fire is definitely not that important for the most part, since it's almost impossible to know exactly where the enemy will be. But this is definitely important when you come into situations like, for example, being inside a building and you see an enemy on the minimap coming to the door or window close to you. So you pre-fire that spot knowing the enemy will be there and you kill them easily. Or another example is, say, if you peek a wall and someone shoots at you a couple times, so you go back into cover. You know where the enemy is, and you can pre-fire that spot and catch them off guard and hopefully kill them. Number 9, choosing which enemy to take down first. This obviously doesn't come in handy in those 1 versus 1 gunfights, but since everyone likes to play 64-player games, the chances you will run into 2 or 3 enemies together is very high, so choosing which enemy to fire at first, and second, and finally third, is extremely important if you want to live through it. So in this situation, personally, I always choose the enemy who is aiming at me first, then kill the other enemies who aim at me afterwards if they see me on the minimap or they hear the gun sounds, or who are sidetracked by something else. If 2 out of the 3 enemies are looking at me, I always go for the enemy who is closest, because they have a higher chance of killing me, and the enemy who is far away has a slightly higher chance of taking longer to kill me, so that's why I go for the closer one. Obviously, this doesn't matter if you're going up against really good players, but in the heat of the moment, in the heat of the action, anything can happen. Number 8, mastering 1 or 2 weapons. For me and players that I play with, we've got so good at this game because for the most part, we are all playing with only a few weapons over and over again. So whenever people ask me how to get better and how to win more gunfights, I always feel that one of the best tips is to stick with 1 or 2 weapons and really master them. Using 1 or 2 weapons all the time will get you more comfortable with the recoil and how the weapon works best, and the best attachments, which will keep you relaxed on the battlefield and in those tense one-on-one gunfights, giving you the upper hand. So many of the guys I play competitive with or against who are amazing at this game, if you check their stats, they will have like 20,000 kills overall, and 15,000 of those kills will be with one gun. Meaning if you go up against them while they're using that gun, you're going to have a tough time beating them because they're just so comfortable with the recoil and they know the best amount of bursts or full auto to choose in every situation, which in the end gives them pinpoint accuracy. And if they use all the tips I'm going over today, which they definitely do, it makes it so hard to take them down. Keep in mind, I'm not saying just use one gun all the time, since that can get boring. As you can see from my gun stats, I don't do that, which gives me much more options for all situations that I come across on the battlefield. But if you master 1 or 2 weapons, it will give you time to really master all the other tips I'm going over today, since you won't be worried about using that one weapon you've mastered while you're on the battlefield. Number 7, learn the recoil of the guns that you decide to use all the time. This tip goes along with number 8, mastering 1 or 2 weapons, and is pretty self-explanatory. But most of the weapons, the best weapons, like the AK, the Scar H, the Ace 52, the MG4, and the F2000 have some crazy recoil or some crazy side-to-side movement, some more than others. But if you can learn that recoil, learn how to control it, and eventually master it, that will give you a better accuracy, of course, which will help you beat any player who hasn't quite mastered the recoil of their weapon of choice. But it will also give you the chance to use one of these extremely powerful guns, especially the Scar H, ultimately giving you the upper hand in mostly any gunfight against the average player. Number 6, always try to be in or close to cover. I'm not going to go over this too much since it's pretty self-explanatory and I went over it in my last top 10, but basically if you're in cover, the chances of you winning the gunfight are so much higher than if you're out in the open. And if you are out in the open but are close to cover, you can quickly get to that cover and then choose to either shoot back right away, wait a moment, or you could even flank. Mind games are always good. So the best way to do this is to run from cover to cover when you know enemies are close by. And I don't mean, run to cover, crouch, run to cover, crouch. I mean, I mean just run close to all the covers in your pathway while you're going to wherever you are. So if an enemy does pop out of nowhere, you already know where to go for safety, so you can fight back right after. Number 5, always peek corners if you know enemies are close. This one kind of goes along with map awareness and watching your mini-map. If you know there is going to be enemies around the next corner, or even better, you can see them on your mini-map, do not run around that corner or put half your body out to look. Just peek the corner while aiming down your sights. Peeking or just checking around a corner will almost always give you the upper hand in any gunfight, since the enemy will have a smaller target to shoot at, and you can easily go back into cover. But overall, if you peek first, you can counter any possible surprise attacks, see if someone is running at you, kill one or two guys, or you can assess the situation, seeing if it's safe to continue or not, and decide quickly what to do next. This is actually my biggest downfall personally. I don't peek corners anywhere enough, so when I don't and go gung-ho around the corner, my aim better be perfect. Peeking or just checking around a corner will almost always give you the upper hand in any gunfights, since the enemy will have a smaller target to shoot at, and you can easily go back into cover, so this is definitely fitting for number 5. Number 4, if the enemy has the upper hand or you're caught out in the open with no cover in sight, do anything you can to avoid getting shot. Moving around quickly, jumping around, going from crouch to standing over and over again, or the last option that I don't suggest very highly, but it's always good every now and then, diving to the ground to try and surprise the enemy. All of this will make it a lot harder for the enemy to shoot you, to hit you, to even keep their sights on you. In turn, this will hopefully get them frustrated in that moment and screw up their accuracy, or even better, get them to go from aiming down sight to spray and pray style, giving you the upper hand. If you stay calm, you ADS and you shoot for their body. You want to shoot for the body, since moving back and forth will make your bullet spray a little more crazy. But overall, yeah, definitely just keep moving. Number 3, burst fire for long medium shots and long bursts, or just unload your clip in close quarters. This is by far one of the most important tips I can give you, and you've probably heard it a million times. Oh, and once again, this kind of goes with number 8, mastering one or two weapons. I can't tell you how many times I've watched gameplay of another player, and almost every gun they use, they are shooting full auto and not bursting at all. Right off the bat, you should never be going full auto unless the enemy is only a few meters away from you, and that also depends on the weapon you're using. It's not that big of a deal for something like the Ace 23, which has amazing accuracy, but most other weapons, it's just something you shouldn't be doing. Spray and pray might work against the average to lower skill level players, but if you play above average players, it's pretty rare that you're going to win that gunfight. Basically, in close to medium gunfights, you should be doing really fast bursts, and for long range, you should either be doing very short bursts or just not shooting at all and moving up closer to fire again. But this is where the tip gets a little bit tricky. How you burst starts to change a lot for each weapon. For me personally, if I'm using the Scar H or the Ace 52, I'm going to be doing very small bursts or fast single firing at almost all ranges, and then fast large bursts at close range. Weapons like the MG4 and the AWS, the Oz, I will be doing fast small bursts and changing the time in between each burst, depending on how far away the enemy is from me, but still keeping the fast small bursts. Weapons like the AK and the F2000, I will not be shooting at long distances at all. I will be doing fast small bursts at medium range, and at short range I will be going full auto, but at the same time doing my best to control the high recoil. And finally, for weapons like the Ace 23 and the AK-5C, the accuracy and stability of these weapons, especially with certain attachments, will give you the opportunity to really use it however you want. And it's definitely a great weapon to use when you're starting out playing this game. But these weapons will also give you the ability to dominate people if you still burst and control the minor recoil. So clearly from this explanation, you can see how important mastering one or two weapons can be when it comes to winning all your gunfights. How well you know your weapon and how to fire it in each and every situation the battlefield puts you in will determine how many gunfights you will win or lose, for the most part. Number 2, aim for the upper body or head. This one is, again, pretty self-explanatory. If you shoot the upper body or head, you will kill the enemy a lot faster than the feet or their legs, especially with the Scar H. So basically, when you find yourself in a one-on-one gunfight, always try to aim for the head or upper body. I know this can be difficult, and I can tell you I have had problems remembering to do this all the time as well. But if you train yourself to always go for the head, you will start to win a lot more gunfights and a lot more consistently. Number 1, ADS, aim down sight. Always ADS, unless the enemy is very close or depending on the weapon you're using and its hipfire accuracy. In extremely close quarter gunfights, it can be hard to follow the enemy while aiming down sight. But for all other gunfights, you should always be aiming down your sight. This also is very important to do when you're peeking a corner or cover, which I talked about earlier. You should be going around corners or peeking corners or cover while aiming down sight so you don't lose any time going through the transition from hip fire to ADS. I know the time is very small, but for me personally, I don't know how many times I've died because I did an ADS going around a corner or coming out of cover just because I was a step behind the enemy. And there is the top 10 ways to win a gunfight. I'm sure these could have been in a different order and I might have missed some, but overall I feel that to consistently win your gunfights, you need all of these going at the same time. I hope this helped in any way possible, whether it was one tip or many, but I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this. Hopefully you can leave a comment, a like, and subscribe to see more. Thanks again, and see you on the battlefield, boys.